Welcome to Blind Man with a Backpack in conversation with Chris Webb.
We drive the graveyard train through the siren rain. We drive the graveyard train when we come calling for you.
Chris was one of the first people I connected with when I set up Blind Man with a Backpack all those years ago. And it is an absolute pleasure to have you with me today for this first recording, for this first podcast of In Conversation With. So, welcome.
Thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here. It's really exciting that you started this podcast, and looking forward to chatting to you today.
Excellent. Good. Well, I've got a cup of coffee and a glass of water, and let's see how we get on. So, first of all, tell us about yourself. Who are you?
So most people in the online blind community know me as an artist. I paint. I live with my husband, Jason, who obviously is my rock, and in the past he was my guide runner. And I've retired from running now, but I still do a lot of walking, and I'm hoping to try and lose a load of golf balls on the golf course this year. but yeah, so I kind of like, so I'm retired now, so my life is filled with art. It's filled with my volunteering. I volunteer for 3 different blind charities. And obviously I'm sight impaired. So that's kind of where I belong in the blind community.
So yeah, let's go into eyes. So you've got you've had your condition for it's about 16 years, isn't it? And it was just something which just came on, out of nowhere, didn't it? Tell me how it came on. Tell me what the condition is.
So the condition is chronic central serous retinopathy. It's in both eyes, but it did appear in one eye first and then appeared in the second eye not long afterwards. So for a little while, I was still able to drive, but only for a couple of years. So basically, it's a retinal disorder, and to put it basically, it's fluid buildup under the macular area. So you end up with that. So where the fluid builds up, it does deteriorate and die off, and that also means that macular area dies off as well. So it's kind of like it happens to be a bit of both, really. You get a bit of blurriness, distortion, and you get a little bit of colour dampening. So everything that is not as bright, which I guess does influence my art a little bit. I mean, you can't really. I never try to paint how I see.
Yeah.
I do paint in a more abstracted and expressive way, but that's because that's what I enjoy. So kind of 15 years that, and it was actually whilst I was working. So it was a bit odd. I had to go up to the eye unit quickly, and that was a bit of a shock. And it was the end of my career as a health professional. So. And also a nature conservationist, so I kind of couldn't do either because of the driving element. So you have to reinvent yourself, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
And so, but as you say, I mean, you touched on it just then. I mean, so previously to your condition, I mean, you've got multiple degrees. You've got you've lived in a tent on the Isle of Mull. You've been You've been a healthcare professional. What? So you said it happened when you were at work. So would you say you were in the hospital at the time because you were a radiographer? Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were doing that, and then something happened, and they're just like, oh, Jesus, I've got to go and get this checked out. So come on, tell me, talk to me about that.
Yeah, so basically I was just carrying on my normal job. At that particular time, I've done many different roles as a radiographer. So I've worked in the scanning unit where they scan brains and things like that. Yeah. And I've also worked in sort of nuclear medicine where you inject radioisotopes into people. And I've also worked in X-ray mainly. Yeah. I've done trauma and I've done cancer. So basically, it's quite a wide spectrum job, really. You get to do a lot of different things. And at this particular time, I was actually working. I'd actually almost kind of gone round full circle, and then I was back to doing X-rays, and I was in a minor injury unit, which I really enjoyed. I kind of forgot how much I actually just enjoyed doing X-rays and meeting lots of different people, and not necessarily people with cancer, not necessarily people, with sort of major trauma. It was minor trauma, so it was actually a lot more kind of easier to deal with and very pleasant. And it was actually there that I was working, and I just couldn't see the screen. I was using a screen in the office to review some X-rays that I'd done, and I just couldn't see it very well. And I just thought I had tired eyes, and I kept rubbing my eyes, and it didn't get any better. But it was quite sudden, and I kind of so obviously one eye was affected first, but it affects both your eyes really, because it takes a couple of weeks for your brain to adapt to even one eye going a bit wrong. So I mean, there's stories of people wearing a patch just to kind of make that other eye just not be influenced by the bad eye. So it did affect both eyes at the time, or seemingly. And I kind of went up to the eye unit, and they told me what I had. It was a bit of a shock, and I was able to go back to my job in the first instance, and I took a bit of time off, but I went back to my job. It took a couple of weeks for my eye to get used to one being completely rubbish, and then but I kind of was still driving, but then over time it basically, the other eye caught up, and it happened in that eye. And when that happened, that was I say game over. It was game over, really. It was game over for my driving, and it was game over for my job. But it wasn't game over. You know, I'm quite a sort of determined sort of chap. I've done a lot of different things, like you said. It is why I took the art up, to relax. I did find myself a little bit stressed by it all, and I kind of thought, what can I do to sit still and relax instead of pacing around my house and doing DIY projects that I didn't really need to do? You know, I was just so busy because I didn't want to think about it really. And the drawing was that. I kind of started drawing just for myself. I didn't show anyone for ages.
But that's the thing, is, as you say, you mentioned there about sort of reinventing yourself and just being determined and all of that stuff. And it is funny because it's one of those things about, I'm sure it's any kind of disability, but as you've got something which is progressively changing and constantly changing, you're having to always come up with different ways of adapting to things, and of adapting to your changing condition or to your changing sight and what have you. I mean, I know it's exactly the same as mine has changed as well. As it's you just find different ways of doing things. You find, like, when you're cooking or something like that, you find a different way of measuring out something, or how you using different tools to know when the pan's starting to boil or whatever that may be. And so you said, so your condition itself, so that was about 15 years ago, and then it's gradually progressed over time. And so, after what, a couple of years, was it that you started to, get into your art a little bit more seriously? And you said you've done drawing, and you do a lot of painting as well, don't you?
Yeah. So I suppose really I should say that art wasn't necessarily a new subject. So the different careers I had my health career, which I had alongside my nature conservation career. I worked for like different charities and that. But I also, when I wasn't doing the conservation career and I was still working at the hospital part-time, or I was juggling everything really, I did actually start my own business, and I did actually start a gardening business, a garden design business, and a landscaping business. So basically, drawings was something I always enjoyed at school, but imagine like something like 15 years later, picking up your pens and going, oh, do you know what, I really enjoyed technical drawing. And so I was doing all these plans, and obviously I was my background, so I was kind of qualified in land management, so that could be anything from managing a sort of a big estate to kind of just doing practical management like dry stone walling and hedge laying and things like that. So it's very sort of country crafts.
Yeah.
And so that's what made me kind of go, do you know what? I am a keen gardener. Why don't I just go and do that for a bit as a kind of as another thing that I'm going to do? And I kind of I really enjoyed it. It was actually quite a sweet story. I used to garden as a teenager for my piano teacher. So basically, I just sort of I did, and I did that for many years, and I had my own little greenhouse at home. I used to grow plants. That was just me as a sort of 10-year-old to teenage years. I was just into my gardening and things.
Yeah.
And I got left £100 in her will, which was really bizarre. And I kind of didn't expect to be left any money by my piano teacher. And it came through at a time that I was looking for other things to do. I thought, well, I've got my hospital work, I've got my nature conservation work. I wouldn't mind trying to replace either of those two with something that is really, truly me. And this £100 came through, and I was like, oh, do you know what? I'm going to make this fun.
Yeah.
And I bought my first tools with that £100.
Yeah.
And then I went and did some gardens. And as I made more money, I bought more things.
Yeah.
It was literally starting a business on a shoestring.
Yeah.
I didn't have a fancy van. I literally started from that, and I did all that, and I really loved. It was like an experiment, really.
Yeah.
Could I pull this off on this one donation? And
it sounds like you did. You know, it sounds like you managed to make a real success of it as well.
Being quite thrifty,
Yeah.
buying second-hand tools, and I just kind of did it the old school way.
Yeah.
So I kind of so I was doing garden designs with that. I mean, I called them planting plans. I didn't want to be too pretentious and say they were garden designs. People were asking me, what plants do I put where and when? And I said, right, brilliant. Okay, I can do that. Let me draw you a plan.
Yeah.
So I kind of drew them a plan with instructions, and they could take that away and do a lot of that themselves.
See, we need something like that. Neither Cass nor I. We're not keen gardeners at all. We've got a couple of little planters in the back garden. My mum comes round and does it for us.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I mean, people do want to plant things, but they don't know what to plant and where, and that's what I was trying to do with that. So that's actually, my art came in a lot earlier, but I didn't call it art. Yeah. It was like a means to an end. Somebody had a problem, and I solved it with a drawing.
Fantastic. And I suppose that's kept it all the way through. We will come back to the art, obviously, but I want to keep diving into being outdoors and all of that. And so you kept that all the way through, haven't you? And even now, so always. And I know what you mean. I mean, I love being out and about and just So you volunteer at the local nature reserve, don't you?
I do. I kind of I'd say that, madly enough, a lot of what I do is outside. So basically, it could be, I've volunteered at the nature reserve for about 7 years now, and I'm just a volunteer warden. It's a very, very, it's a very flexible role. There's quite a few of us that are volunteers there and do different things. Some people do work parties, which I don't do because of all the tools, and with my sight of heaven, I could hurt someone. I don't do the butterfly surveys because that's just crazy. I'm not going to see the butterflies. And I don't do the bird surveys. But what I do is I engage with the public. I do check on the fences, because we have cows between April and November. Right. So even yesterday when I was there, I saw a fence post down. So my first thing I do is I try to kind of temporarily fix it. And if I can't do that, I in any case, I take some pictures and I do a map reference. And then I just send that to my boss, the paid staff. And when they get round next to doing their maintenance, because they are estate workers, they'll add that to the list. So basically, that's what I'm doing. I'm just giving them a heads up that I've noticed something is down. And obviously, something like a fence post is quite it's not hard to spot a fence post down, even with blurry and distorted vision. So I probably missed a lot of stuff, but you know what? It doesn't matter. There's no kind of, they're not expecting a huge amount from any of the volunteers, whether they be whatever is going on with them. Obviously, I'm probably the only one that's sight impaired there, but it's kind of do what you can attitude, and they're just grateful for people to be there. But I enjoy engaging with the public. I mean, the other outside thing that I did about 10 years ago was I created a community group, which was free to attend, and it was painting and drawing outside. So again, outside, and it was just giving people the confidence to do that, because people were afraid to do that. And to be honest with you, I didn't really care. I was like, people would stop and say, "Oh, well, what are you painting?" and be a little bit annoying like that. Or they'd just be really lovely people and say, "Oh, that's lovely," And you just have to get used to that. It's lovely. Sometimes you do meet some odd people, and that put people off. You see, they're a bit shy. So this group was all about counteracting that, and I've done it for 10 years. And I've just handed it over to 3 members.
Right.
I still attend, but I've literally only just done that. So basically, they're booking the events now. But yeah, it went from a once a month group to every week, plus every third Saturday. So it became from 12 events to 64 events.
Wow.
And we get anything from, on a good day, we can get about 30 odd people.
So whereabouts do you paint? And that's amazing. And so whereabouts is it? Is it sort of, because you're Portsmouth, aren't you?
It's just, and do you know what? They're all from different walks of life. Yeah. We've got professional artists, we've got art teachers, we've got people that are absolute beginners, we've got people who wouldn't call themselves an artist, but they really are.
Yeah.
We've got hobbyists, and we've got every walk of life you can imagine. I quite like, I make a big effort to remember everyone's name.
Yeah.
So when they come for the first time, I say it out loud in the conversation a few times, and there it is. It's in my brain. And basically, they always seem surprised that I know their names.
I see. I don't know about you, because I get with everybody knows my name, because they see me, they see Chester, and there aren't many visually impaired people around either. So whether it's me with the dog, or whether I'm with McCain or anything like that, or if I go for a swim or go to a local cafe to grab a coffee or anything like that, always walk in and they greet me and say, "Hi Chris, how you doing?" and all of that stuff. And from that, you're like, I don't know anybody's names. So I like you, I really try hard to make sure that I know everybody's names. The problem is my memory is diabolical. So I'm so bad at remembering. But it is nice, because you're so, and obviously as running the group as well. I mean, let's face it, everybody knows you. So it's just that nice thing to to be able to show that you are paying attention sometimes.
Well, I kind of I don't always get it right. I say I remember everyone's name. I don't always get it right, but I if I don't, I'm just honest and say, look, I don't remember your name. I kind of but over the years, I have enabled members to help run the group.
Yeah,
it's been a gradual thing. So I've got people to what I call host the day. They'd be like, Peter's hosting the day today, or Louise is hosting the day today, and I'll try and refer things to them all the time. So it's their day, they're leading it. And that's kind of like enabling the group to own it themselves. And I think after 10 years, or certainly after the last 3 years of actively doing that, of handing it over slowly, I have actually there's a lot of people that are helping. And it was it's what I said to them. I said, you know what? I'm not really handing it over, because it's already happened.
Yeah.
I might have founded it. I might have booked the events up until the end of last year, but at the end of the day, everybody's run it. Everybody has made it what it is.
Yeah.
Maybe the idea was there. My idea was there, and affiliating it to a global group as well, a global organisation called Urban Sketchers, made it even better because we then started getting more members through them. It does mean we've got to kind of keep their branding and things like that, but the group did go through some changes.
Yeah.
And now I'm now kind of happy to be a participant, and obviously proud that it is what it is today, and really grateful for all those people that run it now.
You must be able to sit there and just sit there as your when you got everyone around you. Sometimes there is just that sitting there and being able to look around and go, yeah, this is me. I made this. It must make a bit of a smile on your face.
Chris, though, I don't really think that enough. I kind of I just get on with things that it was only because somebody this week said to me when there was 36 people at the King's Theatre, they said to me, which was really sweet, they said, look what you started, Chris.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah. I kind of didn't really think of it. And obviously I was a bit embarrassed when he said that, and I said, oh, everyone's involved. I couldn't take the compliment, but basically it was lovely what he said. That gentleman called Phil, and you know what? It's true. But again, the group does run itself now, and that's really important.
No, that is good. That is really good. And so, you said that you've got people and you've got all walks of life, and I'm guessing it's all different types of all different. You've got people that will be sketching, you've got people that will be painting, watercolor, oils, or whatever. So how? Because you're now you're registered as severely sight impaired, aren't you?
I am, which is obviously legally blind. It used to be called that. It's called severely sight impaired. Basically, within that, as you know, but for listeners to know, within both of the categories of partially sighted, legally blind, or now they're called sight impaired and severely sight impaired, there's a spectrum. There's a kind of there's like a folder of people that are in that range, and that goes from you're kind of classified by an eye consultant. So you're not. It's not just an optician; it's an eye consultant, and they classify you into those two things. And within that thing, you could have somebody who, within the severely sight impaired, you aren't going to be able to see the eye chart. To be honest, really, at all. You might be able to make out the top big letter if you're lucky. You might be doing it with some what they call isocentric viewing of your peripheral, but they don't want you to do that when you have the eye test. They want you to look straight as your central vision.
Yeah, and it's funny because
you could have somebody who is blind completely.
Yeah, and it's funny because I didn't realise I had my certificate of visual impairment. So for that's when you are registered, when your consultant, as you say, they tell you that you are at that point. They provide you with it's not just a single page. It's quite a large document, but the front page is your CVI, or certificate of visual impairment.
That's right.
And on there it says what your visual acuity is. And I remember when I looked at mine, and it's just got CF. I'm like, what? What is that? You read the chart and you expect everybody knows it's like 660 or 2020 or whatever that may be. It's like CF, so I did a bit of a Google. I was like, so there's another range. When you can't read that massive letter at the top of the chart, there's another range on top of that. So CF means counting fingers. And I think it's like counting fingers, wave hand, and it's like light reception or something like that. And it's like, wow, there's a whole other world in this now.
It is, and it's really difficult. A really important thing that I came to the realization of was, we're on our sight loss journey. We're kind of like we're learning a lot about blindness on our journeys, and we're meeting a lot of different people within that spectrum of blindness. So we kind of become experts about blindness because it's happening to us. Or, as I put it, it's just something that's happening to me. I don't like to kind of say it's the whole thing that is about me. But I always say that what I forget is the person that I was And if I could go back in time and go, right, Chris, I'm going to ask you about sight loss.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, oh, well, actually, I think actually trying to remember back, even as a health professional, trying to remember back would be like, okay, well, they've got a white cane, they must be blind.
Yeah.
They've got a guide dog, they must be blind. They look like they're struggling. So they haven't got a blind dog or a cane, and they look like they're struggling. They've told me they're sight impaired, so I'm just thinking that they've just got really bad eyes, and they just need to go and get some more glasses. So I kind of like even back then I would not have known about this spectrum. So
But
I
you
make
say
a special effort to go. You know what? They don't know. They're not trying. They can be nice and they can be awful about it, but the ones that are nice and innocently don't know, I have a lot of time for.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm happy to educate them in a nice way, not in a kind of demanding way. But obviously, we all meet those people that are just rude, and thankfully they are far and few between. And at the end of the day, what do? You probably aren't going to educate them, even if you tried. So maybe just walk on.
Yeah, I think you're right. I agree. And funnily enough, I was chatting with my sister just last night, and we were talking about on this exact subject of about knowledge and understanding. And it is there is very little education out there about sight loss and about people understanding, and not just this is how you lose your sight, and teaching you about the biology, as it were, but the actual impact and the life impact and the life-changing impact that it has on you as your sight changes, but not just on you, but on your on the people around you. I'm sure that Jason will have had to have made so many adjustments to be able to support you, and I know Kath has done the same thing. And
it's a really good point, that, because it's something that is quite recent for me to realise as well. Is that when people do sit down and go, right, I want to talk to you about your sight loss, can you help me understand it? I kind of almost feel like, hang on, well, actually, there's another person that's been on the sight loss journey as well, and they are my husband, or in your case, your wife. And it's like, so actually, you might learn a lot from them as well. And actually, so it's not all about me. It's actually about us, and maybe even extended family. And I kind of, but I think there's an awful lot to learn. But I mean, obviously, we all get that question where it's like, but how blind are you? And it's like, and obviously, most of the time it is very innocent. They're not trying to be idiots. They're actually they just don't know what to say. People feel awkward. They don't know what to say. And that's probably the first thing they say. And of course, my answers vary from when I'm registered severely sight impaired, or I might say, I've got bad central vision. I might keep it simple and just go, I've got bad central vision, but I can still see peripheral a bit blurry. And I kind of like, I might say something more impactful, like, I can't really see your face. So and it's kind of like, it's something that they can take away and go, he can't see faces very well. Okay, so it varies depending on who the person is.
And depending on the context and the situation, because I don't know about you, but I get people, and I'll just be walking along and someone will suddenly stop, or I'll be sat reading, sat listening to the radio, or sat on a train or something like that, and then some random person just comes up and says, "Excuse me, are you really blind?" Or I'm not.
It's almost like it says more about them, doesn't it? Really. I mean, would you have done that in your past?
No, not at all. And it's a bit like you wouldn't ask somebody, is that your natural hair colour? Would you? I
just kind of like it is a bit like that. I mean, it's like some people can't read the room. Some people haven't crossed the line. And the thing is to remember is, don't forget that they've probably done that to everyone that day. It could be like not to do with sight loss, of course. It could be a variety of subjects,
Mm.
and that was their approach to everybody that day, all throughout their life. So it's just who they are, and I think
Yes.
it's very easy as well. Let's face it, when people are on their sight loss journey, it's not a very nice journey,
No.
and it's but we don't want to feel sorry for ourselves. But I also, it's kind of, it makes you kind of maybe not so tolerant of people that do say silly things. So, people do have to forgive blind people for maybe being a bit grumpy.
And
But
when you're constantly being asked the same question as well, it's just like, look, I've had this time, time and time again. I just, it's the one. It's just like, well, you're not really blind, though, are you? It's just like, well, my consultant says I am. So
yeah, I think sometimes we're onto a losing battle and
Yeah.
it's best to walk on. But there is something that I came across recently that I thought really described probably many people with eye conditions, and that's like something they've labelled as dynamic disability.
Right.
Have you heard of that?
No.
Right, so this is I said it's quite new to me as well. So basically, imagine like this week I've had a lot of eye pain,
Yeah.
and so I've kind of had to I've had to reduce what I do,
Yeah.
and on those days, and then on other days I can do more. So basically, the dynamic disability is saying that the disability can vary from day to day. So it could be any disability.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be a variety of medical conditions. But in our case, our eye disorders or disease, and it can vary from day to day. It can vary in different situations. So like going. So a lot of blind people, they still go to the cinema.
Yeah.
Some of them can see the screen a little bit. Some of them rely entirely on the audio headphones they're given. But when they go into those areas, because it's pitch black, it's like what kind of residual vision they had is just gone. It's like sort of night blindness. So they become even more disabled in those situations.
Yeah, and that links in because it's that whole you've got your traditional model of disability, haven't you? Which is which is the medical one. Yeah, exactly. Therefore, it's that medical definition of disability, and then you've got that social model, haven't you? Which is I really like that social model because it is just I'm not disabled because I can't see. I'm disabled because there aren't, or in many instances, there aren't the adaptations in place in order for me to be able to live.
I like that. If everywhere
life
was accessible, then we probably wouldn't need to use the word disabled.
Exactly.
But it's not like a bad word.
No, it's not. Not at all.
It's a good way of advocating and advocating our own needs.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't tend to use too many labels. I mean, I've used a few today, and maybe I do use them to people that I meet. But I don't necessarily do it in the first instance. It's not because I'm embarrassed about them. I mean, to be honest with you, it's like the fact that I'm part of the LGBTQ community. But I don't really remember that. I just think that I'm just this regular guy. Yes, I'm married to my husband, and I think of that as completely normal. And it is, of course. So I don't kind of go around telling people, do you know? And I kind of, so the same with my sight loss. I don't go around and go, oh, do you know? I can't really see your face. A bit like that guy who you said came up to you and said, did you really like? So I kind of just naturally go through life. I think we all do. And I think blindness is a spectrum, and the sight loss journey is different for everybody.
It is. It totally is.
And I kind of think that we're all learning. We're all learning. I mean, we're learning new things all the time, and I think having patience was one of the biggest things that I learned.
Yeah.
Because we talked about earlier about adapting things we do.
Yeah.
I always think there's another stage before that, and that is being willing to adapt things that we do.
And and being willing to being susceptible to change as well, and accepting that change is a constant almost. I mean, this is getting very philosophical now, but accepting that change
like you've
is a
got
constant.
to be ready for change.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've got to be. Obviously, we talk about the grief cycle and all that, and so sight loss is grief. It's a grief cycle as well. And basically, you don't necessarily need to be at the acceptance stage to adapt, but you probably need to be quite near it.
Yeah.
Or definitely at that stage.
Yeah.
And then you can go, right, I've accepted I can't do this, but I'm going to do it a different way, or I'm going to let that activity go.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the obvious one would be you're being told not to drive. I mean, you're being told that, but it could be that you still cycle.
Mm-hmm.
No one's telling you you can't cycle. It's not illegal to not to cycle or not.
Yeah.
But clearly you're on the road still, so there is a legal element to it.
Yeah, you need to be a little bit careful, don't you?
You like going running, but you've got to accept that you might need a guide runner.
Yeah. And then you just and things will just adapt and change. And this is one of the things that I absolutely love about the sight loss community it's such a vibrant group and such a vibrant community. Not only those of us who are in it, but all of the other support that there is around. And there's so many organisations, local, national, and all of that stuff that there are as well. And going back to your painting, that's one of the areas that you use to you sell some of your artwork, don't you? And profits for that.
I'm a bit weird because I did used to have many years ago. I did toy with the idea of a little shop, like an online shop.
Yeah.
And I kind of, to be honest with you, the stuff that I was making back then, it was selling at little art markets, but it wasn't really selling online. Yeah. And I kind of just thought, let's not bother with that. And I kind of, to be honest with you, I have sold a lot of art. I have. And I haven't sold it on the back of, this is a fundraiser.
Yeah.
What I've done is people have either commissioned me to do some art or they bought my art. And then I've said, oh, by the way, can you pay my Just Giving fundraiser instead of me? And they don't know that's going to happen when they've asked to buy the art. So they're not buying it out of like, I want to raise some money. I want to help you raise some money for charity. Yeah. So it's been very much, and also I'm not a big promoter of my art. I tend to just look, I'm making art. I guess my promotion is, why don't you make art too?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get people to enjoy that, because at the end of the day, I am a self-taught artist, which doesn't matter whether you are or not, whether you're taught or self-taught. But I'm not trying to make a living from it.
No.
It's my hobby. I enjoy it. I do exhibit my work. I did do a little stint where I did a few group exhibitions around Europe. That was fun.
Yeah.
But I was just trying different things. And these days, I might do a little exhibition, a little group one. I don't tend to do my own ones. I have done twice. Yeah. I've done a solo exhibition twice, but I haven't done that for a long time. And I tend to do little group ones. But generally, I'm just trying to enjoy myself and relax. Yeah. And if somebody contacts me online and says, oh, I really love that painting, Chris, you did. Can I buy it? And I'll message them and say, here's the price. And then they'll say, oh, yes, that's great. Brilliant. Yeah. And then at the end, I'll say, do you mind paying that to my Just Giving page, please? Yeah. So it's that way round. And that makes it a lot less stressful because I'm not every day waking up going, right, what's my marketing campaign today? Yeah. It's very much like, I think, I'm very respectful to people that do need to make it as a living. And maybe, who knows what will happen? Yeah. I could be in a situation one day where I need to up my game and make it into a sort of living. And I'm sure I could probably have a go at that. But for now, I don't need to, and I'm quite happy to do what I do.
Yeah. That's great. So this fundraiser that you have, so that is for Royal National Institute of Blind People, isn't it?
It is,
Yeah.
and it's so I had actually stopped it last autumn. I got to nearly £3,000, and I thought, right, let's stop that.
Yeah.
Let's think of a new charity maybe,
Mm.
because it's always good to. I've done a few different charities over the years.
Yeah.
I think trying to think off the top of my head, I raised the money for a wildlife hospital, so that makes sense with my mother nature. I raised the money for some different sight loss charities before, like Fight for Sight.
Yeah.
I then did raise some money for some veteran charities. Because some of the work that I was being asked to do was actually veterans. So I was kind of like paying them back, really. I was kind of going, hey, I can help you with this, you know. And then obviously this one is the Royal National Institute for Blind. Oh, and in between I did do the British Red Cross. Okay. But I kind of, so currently that was supposed to come to an end last September at just shy of £3,000. And then in between September and the new year, I didn't get any more work or any more people wanting to buy my art, just because maybe I just was really rubbish at promoting. But also, I was probably like really rubbish at reading my messages. Anyway, so I kind of like useless, wasn't I? And then in the new year, I was like, oh, do you know what? I think I'm going to continue with the Royal National Institute for Blind People. And actually, they did contact me, because obviously I've got a good relationship with them, and they did contact me and say, Chris, we've noticed that you've opened up a new Just Giving page. Thank you so much for continuing your fundraising. So that was really sweet. I got brilliant. Yeah, that they noticed, so they said, oh, you're continuing. I was like, yeah, why not? Yeah. So we'll just keep going. Like I say, it's very kind of casual and sort of as it goes. It's not like some major campaign or appeal. I mean, I'm not. It's just, I just like it because it's very gentle, and when people do buy the art, that's where it goes. Yeah. And that's nice.
And you do a lot of work outside of your artwork with RNIB as well, don't you?
Well, but basically, I took on a new role very, very recently, which I'm still going through the induction stage for. But I'm going to facilitate some phone groups. Now, these phone groups, or telephone groups, are for blind and partially sighted people. They're not necessarily for people that live on their own, but they do combat. There is a big element of combating isolation, because let's face it, there are a lot of people that live on their own. And there are a lot of people that are blind and partially sighted that live on their own. And actually these phone groups are to not be too dramatic, they are a lifeline. Yeah. And so there might be different themes. It might be a knitting group. It might be people that used to be builders group, or people that love cars, petrol heads like yourself. And, so they have different themes. And what I'm going to hopefully do, which I haven't done yet, is I'm going to stand in for those facilitators when they need a holiday. So it's really, basically, I'm covering that. Yeah. The other thing that I did start last autumn was the other blind charity, which is the Thomas Pocklington Trust. And they run sight loss councils. Yeah. And it was actually the RNIB that said, would you like to do this, Chris? They actually contacted me, the RNIB, and said the Thomas Pocklington Trust are looking for people in Hampshire, where I live, to do that. So I said, yeah, sure. So I had to have an interview. It was all quite serious. Yeah. And they had to just check I was the right person they were looking for. And that's a campaigning role. So basically, we are looking at campaigning for better access to transport, like buses and trains, looking for better and safer built environments in our cities and towns. Even rural areas, So basically, it's kind of making it safer for blind and partially sighted people to get about. So I started that last autumn, so that's quite new, really. So that's just getting started. But I guess I've got 3 volunteer jobs at the moment. So, but they're not hugely time consuming. No.
I mean, the Sight Loss Councils one, I think that's a really that's a really valuable one, because, as you say, it goes back to, as we were talking about earlier, and saying about people just don't understand sight loss, and there's not much education out there at all. So you've got tactile paving, which goes into to denote where the where the crossing point is when you're coming up to a road or something. But sometimes the tactile paving hasn't been installed very well, or whatever. And but there are elements of, this is a good thing to do, so let's do it. But there's not necessarily like the awareness of it, and that's the great thing about those sight loss councils. I mean, they work you work really closely with, or you provide almost advice to the local councils, don't you?
It's like at the planning stage.
Practice. Yeah, exactly.
At the planning stage, but also, I think, like the RNIB, this is where it does cross over a little bit. They do days where they take simulation glasses along to council teams, or the sort of to educate people about the different eye conditions. But also they do like bus driver awareness training. And actually, the Thomas Boxing Trust have successfully, with the help of the buses in Brighton, they've done a whole new training program, which now is being rolled out sort of nationally. Yeah. So it's kind of like they're making a difference, and but yeah, it's an interesting thing. But obviously, the Thomas Boxing Trust, this is what we're doing with that. But they're also known for their involvement in employment and getting people that are starting out in life with being blind and partially sighted, teenagers and things, getting them into the workforce. Yeah. But getting them into jobs that they want to do, not a job that they could do with sight loss, but what do you want to do as a career? Let's help you develop your career in that area. So it's kind of like, it's definitely seeing the person, not the sight loss. Yes. And so it's been quite interesting to be involved with the other charity. But like I say, the RNIB and the Thomas Boxing Trust, they work together. So they're not like rivals. They don't necessarily do the same thing. They are doing different things, and they do refer people back and forth between the two. They do. And I think that's it. It's a community of, whether it's Thomas Pocklington Trust, RNIB, Fight for Sight, guide dogs. All of them are working together. I know that there's a massive campaigning going on. You've got the Macular Society, which is quite huge. Them. And all of them then join together when you've got some of these campaigns, like, for example, pavement parking, or improving the built environment or anything like that. They work together to combine their expertise to then be able to lobby at with that additional power of those multiple organisations, and and then that helps to then give the advice down to the local charities as well. And exactly, the local charities, you mustn't forget them. I mean, every county's probably got one. They have. I mean, I work really closely with Berkshire Vision, and they if it's not for them, it's like you say, RNIB, they have their telephone groups where people get together and just chatting. But of course, at a local level, that's where you can do it face to face, and that's where that's where that comes in, and they can provide that. At a national level, again, they will have more general advice on aids or support, or long white canes, or whatever that may be. But then at the local level, that's where they can actually be out there on the ground talking to those individuals and demonstrating it really face to face and everything as well. And so it's how everything knits together. It's so important. We're running out of time, and I'm absolutely loving this. We could talk for hours. We really could. And often we do. But we are running out of time. So come on, just to finish off, you've talked about your work with RNIB and this fantastic new role that you're about to start with them. The stuff with the TPT, or Thomas Pocklington Trust, is starting to build up as well. Is there anything else, or is that? It sounds like there's enough on the plate. I think that's probably enough. I mean, I still think that if it's filling your time, exposing yourself to a broad spectrum of people and trying to make a little bit of a difference with the help of lots of wonderful teams out there. And you can contribute to the blind community in the smallest way. So if you are blind or partially-sighted and you have got a bit more time, then basically, sort of think about doing that. But also, what are your interests? And also think about volunteering in those areas too, because a lot of places will support you. And also be kind to yourself, push yourself gently, never give up. And there's always somebody out there to help you and support you. And thanks for today. It's been great. It's been great to chat as always.
Yeah.
We normally chat like every few months, don't we?
We do, and it's always nice just to pick up the phone and have a what's supposed to be a 5-minute chat ends up being
2 hours.
2 hours exactly, but it's always good. Brilliant. Anyway, right, cool.
Well, thanks very much for having me, Chris.
That's all right. Well, we're nearly. You need to let people know where to find you.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So basically, art-wise, the biggest place I'm on is just Instagram, which is basically Chris Webb Artist. So that's double B for Web. And I am also on X, which used to be Twitter. Yeah. But I'm not so much on there. But anyway, that's where I am, and that's it really. So if you're not on those, then sorry about that. Yeah. But I do share some of my stuff to my Facebook, but I don't have a public profile there.
No, fair play. Cool. Right. Well, thank you, Chris, as ever. It has been an absolute pleasure, and hopefully we'll be on the phone and we'll be chatting again soon.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah. Right. So, thank you, everybody. This has been Blind Man with a Backpack in conversation with Chris Webb. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you want to find out any more, then please go to my Instagram or Facebook, which is Blind Man with a Backpack. You can get to my website if you want to do any reading, then that's blindmanwithabackpack.uk. If you want to get in touch, drop me a line. If you want to get involved, then please do. But I hope you've enjoyed it, and thank you.
Your soul is worth it. I take it for free. For free. For free.
That was Blind Man with a Backpack in conversation with Chris Webb. If you'd like to find out more about any of the organisations we discussed during this show, then you can visit the Royal National Institute of Blind People at rnib.org.uk. To find out about the Thomas Pocklington Trust, visit Pocklington, that's POCKLINGTON.org.uk. And to find out more about the Sight Loss Councils, you can visit sightlostcouncils.org.uk.